Wow. Welcome to the Influential Christian Entrepreneur Podcast, where we uncover the inspiring stories and strategies of successful Christian entrepreneurs. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of interviewing Nicole Roth, who also calls herself Joy Coach, and she is a lover of life, lover of people, and is passionate about helping women live their one joyful life, embracing the fullness of joy from the Lord in all areas. She speaks intimately about this subject because she lived for many years in a mostly joyless state driven by performance and achievement, wondering how to find the fulfillment and contentment she was longing for. Nicole is wife to David of 21 years, mom to 3 nearly grown girls, author and lover of all things outdoors. She is most at home in her kayak, out on a hiking trail with her dogs, in her hammock, or hanging out in her camper. Hello, Nicole. Thank you for being here.
Good to be here. I'm so excited. And yes, there must be something good in this conversation because we've had all sorts of
all types of technical issues. I'm having to record on Zoom for the first time because we weren't able to get anything else going. And I will assume that you don't live in Florida, do you?
Nope, I'm in Texas.
That's probably why you like your kayak. I'm so terrified of going in the rivers in the kayak with the alligators down here and everything else. I've done camping a few times and I've had to deal with snakes, which I have a huge phobia of, but camping is a little bit more challenging, especially in the heat months down here.
Yes.
Possible.
Well, I'm a glamper. Yeah.
Yeah, I love camping. I love the camper life. I love all of that. It's just that I'm not a natural outdoorsy type of person. I'd love to be, though.
See, that's why you need me. If we lived near each other, I would take you.
I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. Come pick me up. I want to go. Let's have a girl trip. Thelma and Louise. Yes. So
come on.
So Nicole, thanks for being here today and reading your bio. I see that you work with women. And do you I know you call yourself a joy coach, but not necessarily a Christian coach. Do you work with all women, whether they're Christian or not?
I really focus on Christian women. The walk that I walked, really what I have to share really is about the revelations of God's love, his grace. That's really what changed everything. So unless somebody's open to that, I probably am not going to be the person to best serve. So yes, Christian women is my jam for sure. And I didn't come up with that title. The Lord told me that. I was like, well, that sounds fun. I don't know what that is.
To increase joy.
Let's do that.
Is that what you have become, a joyful person? Were you always a joyful person, or it sounds like you were type A type of person?
Very much so. Very, very type A, very much into the next goal, the next thing, the next achievement, and never really even able to pause and celebrate that thing, whatever it was. It was like, nope, on to the next thing, because that wasn't enough. That hit wasn't, strong enough. So it was basically living in idolatry. I didn't know it at the time, but I was trying to find something outside of God to fulfill me and to fill those places of hurt and wounds and, the things that we all have in a way that was not from him. So it didn't work, surprisingly.
Didn't work. And so how long have you been a Christian?
Oh gosh. So it was right out of college. That's a lot of years ago. So yeah, I'm 40. I'm going to be 49 this month. So yeah, a lot of years. But I grew up in a religious home, in a church going home, but I never actually heard the gospel. So that kind of fueled that, good works, try hard, do good things. But I was working in my own strength because I didn't understand God's grace. I didn't truly understand the gospel. And even as a believer, I didn't get it until probably over a decade into my walk with him, when he started showing me, hey, you don't understand grace. Like, you might understand salvation, yes, someday I'm going to heaven, but I didn't understand what was available for me now in the, in the here and now on this earth. Like he wants us to live by his power, by his grace, his strength. I was like, yeah, I don't get that. I don't
Right?
understand.
Like let go of control. What?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's hard, isn't it? And I don't consider myself a type A person.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's always, we've been told you got to do this.
Yeah.
You've got to structure, you've got to plan, you've got to
Yeah.
check every box. You
Right.
know, it's like this all the time. And
Yep.
that idea of letting go, especially to someone that we cannot see with our earthly eyes, you know, it's like I could not grasp that concept.
Yeah.
And so I also grew up in church going home, like
Mm-hmm.
Catholicism.
Yep.
And I thought that I was a Christian. And I feel like I'm meeting a lot of people that think they're Christians, like I was. I thought, because I believed in Christ, but that's not what being a Christian is. And I just came to that realization so recently.
Oh, that's so good.
So it sounds like you were in that same spot. You thought you were a Christian for a long time.
Oh yeah, because I was good. I was like a good person. I had a good intentions, and the Lord brought me and showed me, hey, no, I mean, that was the best. That was one of the best revelations. I was on a retreat. He went to extensive lengths to be sure that I knew that this was him and not my own, conjured up, whatever. But I went to this retreat and I got there and all the women there were like the bad girls. They had gone through abortion and jail and, drugs and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't fit here. I'm the goody two shoes. I don't fit in this room, but yet the Lord, through crazy circumstances got me to that place. And so I knew it was him. And I'm like, I said, but God, I don't belong here. And he said so clearly, that the way that you are trying to basically, and I was a believer at the time, but he said, the way that you're trying to be good in your own strength is just as wicked as these girls, who have gone the prodigal route. So in the story of the prodigal son, there's the older brother. And so that was me. So both sides of the spectrum can be unhealthy. I was trying to earn something that I already had. I had my father's approval. I had, at Leif Hetland, I love him. He talks about the orphan spirit and, healing from that. He says, I already had I have an A+ on my report card every day. There's nothing to prove, nothing to earn. It's there. But I didn't understand that. And so I was trying to be good, even as a believer, and it's like, hey, that's not your job. I died for your sins. And it's in both sides of the spectrum of trying to be good or to go off in rebellion. It's still sin. It doesn't.
Right. You're digging into something really deep here, because so many people, including myself, I'm like, I don't kill people.
Yeah.
I don't rob people. I don't do any of these things. So therefore I am good.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that the fact that we think we're good makes it even more difficult for us to accept the fact that we're in the same category in God's eyes as the people who are out there doing things that are obviously not good, because they can see, oh, this is terrible. Everybody tells them it's terrible. So they know. We go around like, well, I don't do any of that. I don't do any of that. But we're not watching the Lord, in God's in Jesus' footsteps. But because we don't do these blatantly terrible things, we are deceived.
It's such a trap. It's self-righteousness. It's such a trap. And so you can know that you're there and again, no shame. Like I lived there for years, totally deceived. But you can know if you have a sense of judgment and a sense of like, I'm better than, those people over there that do those things, you can know, yes, you are in a place of self-righteousness and you've missed the boat, sadly, just like I did. And so it is the most freeing thing to understand our need, all of our need, every one of us, and then to be able to give God the glory for our lives. Because if we continue in that good works, trying hard, whatever, we get the glory. That was me. I mean, for so many years, people praised me for the way I led my homeschool group and the way I did blah, 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 blah. But it was all glorifying me. It wasn't giving glory to God. And so you start operating out of God's strength and out of his grace. It's only for the glory of God, because the stuff that he starts to do in your life, you're like, yeah, I can't take any credit for that. Nope, not that one either. Nope. And it's so fun because like, that's my new MO. I'm like, I don't come up with the things that he wants me to do. And not that I'm perfect at this, but I'm learning, it's like, the Lord gave me this. I wish I could show it, but if you can imagine a graph, like a bar graph or a little, he showed me that living in this place of, I call it the ladder of worthiness. You basically just every day on a daily hour to hour basis, go up and down this ladder of based on our own performance, whether we are worthy of God's love. We don't realize it, but this is what he showed me. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is how I live, this ladder of worthiness. I messed up. I yelled at my children. Oh, down the ladder, or, oh, I read my Bible and I talked to someone about, I shared the Lord. I shared Jesus. I shared salvation. Okay. Yes, you did, good. And so you live that way in this, it's like a roller coaster ride. There's no stability. It's very like schizophrenic, honestly.
Yeah.
That's where I lived. And I didn't know. I was like, why is there no fruit? Why do I not feel close to God? Why? And then there's so much shame over that, because I'm like, everybody else has clearly got it together except for me, because that's what the enemy does with, shame. He says, don't tell anybody, because then you're going to be found out.
Yeah.
And I finally was like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But there's not the fruit. I look in the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians. I don't see that in my life. I don't see love. I'm not, becoming, that was one of the big things. I was at, I think it was like a January sermon, and the pastor said, are you more loving this year than last? And I was like, nope, more judgmental, more, full of myself, whatever, maybe, but no, not more loving. And so I really had to get serious about, God, why is this the case? I'm not joyful. I'm not filled with peace or, contentment, whatever. And so that's what he showed me. You're living from a place of self-righteousness rather than Christ's righteousness. And so once we get off of that ladder and go, you know what, I'm done with that. I'm trying my own way, and even as a believer, I was like decades into walking with the Lord, but still didn't get it. I didn't understand. And so then this other graph, chart, if you will, is grace. And like, once you get on that and you're like, okay, that's just going from glory to glory, understanding, him operating through us then, rather than, it's not navel gazing any longer. It's not looking at what have I done. It's like, actually, it's not about me at all. I'm not part of the equation. He died for me. It's his strength. It's his, it all goes back to him. So if we can operate from that, then it's a whole new trajectory. And then we just it's more glory back to God as we operate our lives, because the things that he does, it's like, yeah, like I said, I can't take credit for it. It's well beyond anything I could have, dreamed up or whatever. So,
Yeah, because I find that part of the reason why we struggle with even after we've accepted Jesus Christ and we're trying to walk the walk, I've discovered that Bible illiteracy is a big factor in why it's so difficult for us. Because personally, for me, so my conversion happened in 2020. It wasn't until 2023 that things started to click. And you know why that was? It was because I was Bible illiterate, because I pick up the Bible and I don't understand what it's saying. I put it down. I get frustrated. And all my church going years, like you, I never knew the gospel.
Nope.
And you're trying to break it down yourself and you get frustrated and put it back. And so I found that when you try to maybe join a group of other people that can help you understand. In addition to that, when you don't put the Bible down and you just, start with a book like John, and the more you read it, the easier it gets. It's weird. The more you read it and the more you pray and ask God for understanding, the more you start to understand, because before I was relying all on my own understanding.
Right.
Or when I started with that Genesis book and it starts with begat, begat, begat,
Yeah.
begat. I'm like, I have no idea what is going on here. I don't know. And so I think that we, depending again on our own understanding of things, the reason why people just don't get it is because of the amount of, because of the Bible illiteracy is a big factor there, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing that God really showed me was I had a lens, a rejection lens in the world with God as well as other women, especially. And so when I would read the Bible, the only thing that I heard was condemnation. You are not measuring up. You know, the enemy would say, when I would read about the martyrs, you know, how the disciples, how they died, most of them, the enemy would say, you wouldn't do that. You know, and I was like, you're right. I stink at this. And there was more shame, more guilt, more condemnation. And so actually one day I was so fed up, because every morning it would be, you're not enough. You're not doing enough. You're not reading the Bible enough. You're not praying enough. It was all the enemy's attack. But I thought it was God. I thought it was, I just don't measure. I'm not good enough, you know, and so try harder. And it's a trap, because there's never enough. There's never that point where like, oh, I did enough today. Now I feel worthy of God's love. It never comes. Because then again, inevitably there's I yelled at my kids. I did whatever. And then it drops back out. So anyhow, just, such a trap. But I finally was like, you know what? I'm done with this. And I told the Lord, I am not going to read the Bible unless it's out of love. It was totally out of duty and this fear and like shame and condemnation and whatever. And I'm like, I'm over this. I know that, you know, if I've heard of people, you know, experiencing your love, I don't see it. I don't see love in the Bible. I couldn't see it. And so I actually laid it down for probably close to a year. But the thing that really was so cool was during that time, the Lord shortly thereafter downloaded to me in a very early, I'm not a morning girl. And so anytime it's like real early, I'm like, that's you, Holy Spirit. So he told me a list of probably 10 or 15 different words and phrases. Like, this is who you are, you know, redeemed, forgiven, beloved, cherished. And then I went back to bed. I was like, okay, that was good. So I got those words, and then I was like, Lord, if this is from you, I want you to show this to me in your word. I want to sit and like, you direct me to these passages that show me that this is from you. And so I would sit, it was months. I would sit every night in the bathtub with my note cards and my Bible. And I said, show me, where do you want me to read? And I would hear, you know, whatever, John 8. Okay, start reading. And then I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, this is, you know, I am victorious. And I'd like write that verse down in that card. Well, I've got those cards actually right here. They're all covered. They're covered with scripture. And so he took me on this journey. And sometimes it'd be like, I don't know, you know, Ephesians 7, it doesn't exist, you know, like something like that. You know, I would look and I'm like, oh, nope, I got it wrong. But the more that I pressed in and like, okay, God, where do you want me to read? And just listen for where he'd say. And the more that I did that, my ears got attuned, and he started directing me, you know, to these different passages. And I started to see his love, and it changed everything for me. And then I took it a step further, and this was years ago. My youngest, she's 15 now, so it's 11 years ago. She was just learning to read. And so I had all these verses that the Lord had showed me, and it was like, you are victorious. And so my daughters and my husband and myself, we made this recording putting my name into these different scriptures. And then I listened to it for months after. So anyhow, it was so profound just in that healing. But I see now that I was coming with the lens of, for one, that the self-righteousness. So I was never going to be good enough, you know, like, and the enemy uses that to, you know, to bring that condemnation, like, oh, see, yep. And I said, yeah, I agree. I stink. I failed, you know, like, but now this is such a good news. The enemy can come with that condemnation, and I can go, yep, thank you for reminding me. And every time you remind me, I will say, glory to God, because he rescued me and his grace covers my sin. And I don't have to be good enough, because I never will be. Right. So it's like, take that, you know, like
you never will be, because Jesus did that for us.
Yeah.
No,
it's so freeing. It's absolutely so freeing to live from that place of the true freedom that Jesus bought for us. And really, my favorite book of the Bible is Galatians. And like, really, if you dig into Galatians and the freedom that's awaiting you as a daughter rather than, or a son, rather than trying to strive and trying to, that self-righteousness,
Right.
basically, it doesn't work.
Self-reliance, self-help,
Yep.
self-confidence, self-improvement,
Sufficiency. Yeah.
self-sufficiency. Everything in today's
Yeah.
culture is about
Yeah.
the self.
Yeah.
And it sounds good, but it's not what Jesus said. Didn't say, follow your heart, for example.
Right.
He said, follow me.
Me.
You
Yeah.
know, he didn't say anything as your truth. He said, I am the truth.
Yeah.
Right. And to people, when we counteract that and say, for most people, it's like, for them, it's like, what are you saying, that I'm not good enough, that I need to be? And it's I used to think like that as well. So I can totally understand where they're coming from.
Absolutely.
But it's a process of becoming more humble. It's a process of, like you said, surrendering. And that is a tough thing to swallow when you are outside, when you are like secular, when you're, it's a tough pill to swallow. And the whole thing about tuning your ear to be able to recognize, that was another thing. I used to believe people who talked about, I heard God say, like you're talking right now. When I was secular, I'm like, okay, you're either crazy, delusional, or you're straight up lying. I mean, because that had never happened to me, and I know why now, right? But I'm like, I don't know what these people are talking about. So,
absolutely. Yep.
It takes a minute, but it happens.
Yeah.
So, so the premise of this podcast being that we are told that we should not mix business and faith, whether you are working in the corporate world or whether you are an entrepreneur, like we are, we are working in the online space, both of us. You shouldn't mix that because it's bad for business. It makes you look crazy. Those things, you should leave your religion, what they say, religion, your faith, home. And I wanted to know, what is your opinion about mixing faith and business? Should we do that or should we not?
Absolutely. My goodness. It's not possible. It's like cutting my arm off. I mean, it's like, how do you operate? And, I can't leave that out of my vernacular or any part of my life because it's everything to me. So it seems like, and maybe it doesn't have to be blatant, like, I don't know, John Maxwell is a strong believer, but his messaging is Christian values, but he doesn't present it that way. So I think it can be done in a way that's not overt, but we just have to follow the Lord on where he's calling us. Is he calling you to be a covert, a covert operation or an overt operation? But both, we have to share who we are and, and express that in business for sure.
For sure. Yeah. I think that was part of my huge problem for the first 2 years since I converted to Christianity, that I was being called to be an overt, because that matches my personality, because I am kind of bold and blunt, and not being able to say anything about my beliefs and values was really slowly killing me, because I really believed in, we shouldn't mix faith with business. I'm going to lose business. Everybody's going to run away from me. Nobody's going to want to do business. I'm not going to have a business. Like they're going to, and so that was really killing me. And if your assignment was to be overt, that's hard. Now, maybe you work with a lot of secular people in your business. Maybe it's covert where, that door, they know who you are and your beliefs. And then you leave that door open for those conversations. They're just all different types of opinions. On this, I want to bring back a guest that I had, Frank Amons, who, by the way, is a pastor. He's all for, we need to be overt. Now, there are varying degrees to that, but we can't not make it obvious or known that we are Christians. It doesn't matter who you. So I want to bring him back because I want to
Awesome.
go over that anymore, because so far the consensus has been, depends. It depends, right? It depends on how you do it. Depends. And so how do you do it in your business? How do
Well,
you
I think,
mix it?
yeah, my brand and my business is very overtly Christian, again, because that's what I've walked, and what I have to offer to people is understanding God's love, understanding his grace, operating from his, rest and all that stuff. It wouldn't make sense. Like it wouldn't. And I would like, I mean, whatever the Lord's going to do, he will call whoever I'm supposed to reach. But yeah, it's definitely been a much more Christian focus, because that's the walk that I've walked, and I know that's who I can help the most.
Right. And that is your audience. So then it completely makes sense to be overt about it. And my audience as well is Christian. So it wouldn't make no sense for me not to. And I feel like a lot of people from my previous, who have been in my world, in my business world in the past few years, some of them are like, yay, that's great. I've seen you turn the corner. Like, but some of them, and this is the only ones that I know, some of them have just stopped engaging completely,
Sure.
because it's not for them. Do that, and they don't want to be associated with somebody who does what they don't think should be done. And that's okay, because I've come to the point where I truly have stopped caring about other people's opinions. The only opinion that I care about is Jesus's opinion.
That's right.
And I will never deny him again to please other people. And I'm clear about that. But it was a big struggle getting to this point.
Sure.
And we all have to.
I'm so proud of you. No, it's huge. It absolutely, that letting go, and there's still definitely some fear of man in me, but the growth that I've had in that area is so massive. Like, again, not like you're saying, not caring. It's like, no, I'm going to do what God, at the end of the day, I'm going to stand before him and have to give an account. So it's not going to be to, the people that are whatever in my life. It's the Lord. So that's the voice of the matters. That's the direction that, whatever he tells me to do, that's what I need to do. So.
That's what we need to do. Absolutely. And I've also noticed that, when there are two instances in which I get a lot of blowback. When most people are okay with just talking about God, but then when I talk about Jesus, that's when you get, and then also I noticed that when you talk about Satan, you also get blowback, mostly because, oh my God, the devil doesn't exist. Well, he might not exist as a red skin horned creature with a trident, but people don't want to think that it's being superstitious, fearful, and paranoid to believe in that. And so I post openly about that as well. And I don't care what people think, because Jesus talked about Satan in the Bible many times, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if he's the truth, right, the light and the way, then I'm going to believe him before I ever. And so that's amazing. So tell us, Nicole, what do you have going on in the next few months? We are recording this on September 7th. It will probably not go live until the end of November. So do you have anything going on business-wise, or anything you wanted to talk about and invite people to?
Yeah, so it'll probably still be ongoing. I'm doing a webinar right now called Raise Your Resilience. I'm writing a book. So I have one book called Being the Beloved. That's an allegory of my own story of healing from all the stuff that I just mentioned, the type A, the striving, whatever. And then my daughter, who is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. So I talk about striving and shrinking, which one we're called to abide. That I was a striver, and my daughter, this is just one example of somebody who shrinks back in fear and, feeling small or wanting to stay small.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so that's my first book, and it's been beautiful. The response to that, it's been really amazing. But anyhow, I'm writing another book called Tree of Life, and I hope to have that done by the end of the year. And that is actually all the stories, like the real stuff behind the allegory, what I'm talking about here, and just how I've learned about this ladder of worthiness and how to operate from God's grace and not our own strength, that kind of thing. So anyhow, I did an event called Raise Your Resilience, and just using the metaphor of the sequoia tree and what the Lord showed me about the root structure. It's so crazy. It's mind blowing. That they actually require, for one thing, they require fire to propagate. So their seeds, we learn good things and struggle. It's not fun, but that's in that valley, in those hard places, that's where we really grow. And then also that their roots are connected underground. They are very shallow. They're massive, the most massive things on the planet, but they're only 3 to 12 feet deep. And so we need each other. We need to be in each other's lives. We need to be supporting each other in tangible ways. And so that's what I'm building. I'm building something called Sequoia Sanctuary. It's an online membership where people can come in and just find healing, learn. I'm going to have these several different courses that I've created about these different topics, about living in God's grace and, operating in His strength, having boundaries, how to say no. Like, there's all the good things. Like, no, actually, you need to hear from the Lord, what's from Him for you for now in this season, and say no to every single thing else, because it's going to wear you out. It's going to deplete you. It's just not, it's not going to go well. So anyhow, so I've been doing those webinars, and I intend to continue to do that. And yeah, so
you do the webinars, and how would people find you to request to be part of the webinars? Or do you have any links, emails? Where can they find you?
So my site that I'm working on right now, which it'll be done by then, it's One Joyful Life. So instead of the FUL of joyful, it's joyful, FULL. So that is my message, is to stop living a joyless existence, whether you are that person that strives or the one that shrinks back. There's no joy in either of those places because we're not abiding in His love and His strength. So so onejoyfullife.com is my site, and I'm excited to see where God leads all of this stuff.
And where do you hang out the most? Is it Facebook or LinkedIn?
Facebook. Yep. Facebook.
You're mostly on Facebook, and they can find you under Nicole Roth, correct?
Yes, correct.
Are there a ton of Nicole Roths on Facebook?
I don't think so. No. And you should be able to find me. So.
Okay. I'll put those links in here. And I want to thank you, Nicole, for coming on this podcast, The Influential Christian Entrepreneur, and sharing your story and your insight, because, I find that every time I interview someone, everyone has such a different perspective about this topic, and your insight about how you used to strive so much in your journey into realizing that, you were actually a sinner. Even though you didn't think you were, you weren't actually a Christian, even though you thought you were. Those are really common themes, but everybody comes to discover those in a different way. So I want to thank you for being on today. And to my listeners, if you are a Christian CEO or executive seeking to authentically integrate your faith and professional brand on LinkedIn to inspire others, further God's kingdom, and leave a legacy, let's connect. You can find me at francineSinclair.com, or you can send me an email at hello@francineSinclair.com. And so I will see you guys again next week. Next Tuesday, we will have another inspiring and amazing guest like Nicole. And I thank you so much. Bye-bye, Nicole. Take care. You froze.